Now inhlangano yazo ukuthi ke i-sustainable change ikhola ukuthi ke yintsha yaseNingizimu Afrika kufanele ukuthi ke ihlonishwe ngolwazi ukuze izokwazi ke ukuthi ke ibe ngosomabhizinisi uma ngabe iphothula ke isikole noma ngabe sebeqedile ke emanyuvesi oyisikhulu esiphezulu ke noma ke omsungula phinde futhi abawuyena ke umqondisi wayo ke lenkampani okuyena ke uDr Memuna Williams esizokhuluma naye kuluhlelo lethu ke kuningi okufanele ukuthi ke kwenziwe kuyona ke intsha yaseNingizimu Afrika ukuze ke ihlome ngokuphelele ikwazi ukuthi ke iphumelele kuona ke amabhizinisi. Angikubingelele mbukeli igama lami nguSimangeli Sibongo sami ngwakachirwa ubukela uhlelo lakho iKZN News Talk. Dr. Williams, such a great pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Welcome to KZN News Talk.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I do understand that you are a founder and CEO of Empowering Sustainable Change. Let's firstly begin by looking at this organization, what it is about.
Wonderful, and thank you for the opportunity. So Empowering Sustainable Change is an advisory. I'm a doctoral practitioner, and the services that we offer with me at the helm is we do formal writing and speaking for entrepreneurs, especially young people and women. And this is to kind of share our philosophies and our ideas with them. I also do one-on-one consulting with small and medium-sized businesses, especially youth and female-owned businesses. And then I also offer my teaching services through universities like Wits and Gibbs and Duke Corporate Education as an adjunct.
You are obviously focusing on entrepreneurs and empowering entrepreneurs, upcoming entrepreneurs. Why is this important for you?
Fundamentally, because I think that we can make a difference through business. And because small and medium-sized businesses are in some ways often overlooked, but almost everywhere in the world, they make up upwards of 80% of the businesses that are in any communities. But it's often the bigger businesses that make up the rest of the 15%, often less than that, often 10% or 5% of businesses in communities. And I think it's important for us to strengthen small and medium-sized businesses so that they can make a difference in their communities. And we see that they do that when they have the opportunity to do so.
Do you think that you've got enough small entrepreneurs in different provinces? I know that you are based in Johannesburg, but do you think we have enough numbers of entrepreneurs in the country?
To say no. Especially when we're looking at it from the youth perspective, and we have such a high unemployment rate. Here and across the region, what the conversation is what the role of entrepreneurship is going to be in solving the unemployment crisis. So with, such high numbers of unemployment across our youth, I would say that we don't have enough. And part of my work is not only coming alongside those who are already in business. I'm careful not to say that I support them because they've already done something amazing in starting their own business, coming up with their idea. If just think about all of the businesses we have in our communities and how amazing they are. Where I come in is if they have a question and they're stuck, and they specifically ask for help, I can come in, listen, analyze, and offer solutions that are co-created and or built specifically for them based on the knowledge that I bring to bear. But I can also support startups, both with my knowledge and also given my experience as a startup entrepreneur. Empowering Sustainable Change is currently one of 3 businesses that I own, and I've previously started at least one other business.
How far do you go in terms of trying to assist small business owners? Because we know that they're faced with many challenges, and among is finance, which ends up, being a hindrance when it comes to the success of their businesses. How far do you go as an organization in trying to assist these small business owners?
Really usually depends on what the small business owner has, or small and medium-sized business owner has as a problem. And interestingly, it's often not around financing and fundraising. Although if that they don't come to me to ask me those questions, a lot of operational questions, a lot of strategy and marketing questions.
Is it because they are covered in that aspect? Is it because they are doing fine in that?
It's an interesting question. I think maybe that's something that we need to look into, right? Maybe they think that the sales will come or what have you. But it is an area, paradoxically, that we see, especially with female business owners, that they share that they don't have access to capital. Yet when I'm in touch with the businesses that ask for my help, it's almost never, asking about how do I access finance. So that's an interesting insight that you're bringing up for me as you're asking me this question.
A lot of business owners, like I've mentioned in my last question that we're discussing just now, the issue of finance comes out like most of the time when you're talking to small business owners, they will tell you about finance. As an expert in the field where you're assisting entrepreneurs, do you feel that finance is the key to the prosperity of any small business operating wherever it may be operating?
Money is really important. As you're asking me this question, I'm thinking about my former boss who built $1 billion translation business, and she's written a book about it. I'll have to think of the title or look it up before we come off air. But she insists that the craziest thing in business is trying to finance yourself with, outside financing. And that what the discipline in is business is getting those sales. And so what I witnessed in working with her and what I've kind of discovered in reading her book is that, she did the hard work up front. And I'm not saying that other people don't do work, but this is her philosophy and something that I think is important for us to think about, of really pushing the sales and doing the investment in the business in areas where sales could be pushed. So what amongst her early hires were marketing personnel. And she didn't take up the expense of, expensive rents or real estate. She rented small one-person offices out of which those people could work as she was growing the business along with her business partner. And she pushed and she incentivized around sales. So what that ended up meaning was that this became a very cash-rich business without the need for that outside investment. And I think that there's something there that we can learn from in terms of, fundamentally knowing that, for your business, cash flow and cash is really important. And what are you doing within the business to make sure that you're generating that cash and that cash flow, depending on what your model is?
Very interesting. We're going to expand more on that point, which I think is very important when we come back out of the outbreak. For now, we're going to go to an outbreak, and then when we come back, we proceed with that very interesting topic. So, tengitambukele Kaizer News Talk. Mangabe sibuya siqhubeka nalo ke uhlelo lethu iKaizer News Talk oyibukelayo. Asikubingelele mbukeli sikwamukele kubusoke isigaba sesibili saloke nje uhlelo lakho iKZN News Talk oyibukela igama lami nguSimangele isibongo sami ngwakachirwa kanti ke kuluhlelo lethu namhlanje sikhulumisana la ke uDr Memuna Williams owumsungula phinde futhi abuyena ke umqondisi wayo ke inkampani yazo ukuthi ke Empowering Sustainable Change sinayo ke inkulumo naye kuloke uhlelo lethu kakhulu njengoba bebheka igebe elikhona kuyona ke intsha seningizimu Afrika njengoba beveza ukuthi ke amathuba ke oqala kamabhizinisi iyona into ebalekile okufanele ukuthi ke intsha ikwazi ukuthi ke ilinke kuyona ukuze kwazi ukuthi ke kube khona inqubekela phambili kuyona ke intsha yaseningizimu Afrika. Dr. Williams, such a great pleasure to have you back on the show again. We are on the second segment of the show. In your research, I believe, as a company that you have done, you are pointing out that in 6 to 10 young people between the ages of 15 to 24 are unemployed in our country, exposing a deep disconnect between education and economic opportunity. Talk to us about that.
So it's not our specific research. It's a well-known statistic, but yes, that's a large number of young people to be unemployed, as we were talking about in the previous segment, part of where we see the disconnect is, where this conversation started on the matric results that came out a couple of weeks ago. Immediately, these young people are matriculating and supposed to be going on to university. They come up with roadblocks. And that starts with public universities not having enough spaces. You end up with hundreds of thousands of applications for just a few thousand spots that are available. So even when some of these young people are passing, as they did at a rate of 88% this year, I think a 0.7% improvement, which I do think is an important achievement. They are coming up against difficulties moving forward in the traditional way. And then, as they continue on their paths, trying to get into entrepreneurship, as we were talking about, access to finance, or trying to get into traditional employment, you then find employers saying, well, you don't have the skills that we want. And this at this point might be somebody who has gone through university. So there are many problems that they face and that contribute to that high number of youth unemployed.
And what do you think should be done to try and bridge that gap?
It's a really good question. I think that there are many stakeholders that are involved in this problem. You have the individuals that we were just talking about, like the matriculants. They have their part to play, but you have many others in the ecosystem, like the institutions, that is the public universities, the private universities. You've got the civil society sector, people like me, and then you also have government, local and national, that has its part to play as well. So, we can start from the individuals. I think it's a very difficult time for young people to be making their transitions. But at the same time, this generation is one that is going to see multiple transitions in their lifetime. So I think it would be good for them to know that, to the extent that they haven't heard this idea before, and understand that this is a first opportunity to show how to navigate a transition in a very, very difficult context. So they have their part to play, understanding where they are, knowing that they have agency, being encouraged to take this first step and doing that. So I would encourage that. But at the same time, we need to meet them part way. we need to give them the kind of support that Empowering Sustainable Change offers, that we talked about in terms of providing information, in terms of educating, in terms of giving one-on-one support if there are business ventures or ideas that they need mentoring or support on. And that is something that I will continue to do. And we're quite fortunate in South Africa that there are many community programs. I used to work for Junior Achievement. They have a presence here in South Africa, and they focus on self-efficacy and entrepreneurial education and mindset shift and things like that. I also used to work for African Leadership Academy, which is here in Honeydew, outside of Johannesburg, and they develop leaders and entrepreneurial leaders from all over the continent. And there are many community programs as well beyond. But I think, organizations like mine and the others that I've mentioned, we can't on our own do the hard work of adding spaces to the institutions. The public universities and the private universities have to do that. They have the knowledge, they have the resources, and they have the mandate in some cases if you're talking about an elected government official. And I would encourage them over the medium and long run to look at the structural issues that are there and to help with solving them. Also business, the comfortable response has been they don't have the skills that we want. Okay, so what are you doing on your part in order to solve that? One thing could be partnering with organizations like mine in order for us to deliver the additional training that might not have come through traditional avenues. But what are the things that you can do internally? Are there programs that you have been planning that you can start earlier? Similar question to government entities as well. So it's a complex question, a complex issue that requires a response from everybody. And I would encourage everyone to do their part.
Very interesting. And I'm just thinking about, another point that comes in mind as you are explaining some of very important points. Do you think that as a country we have come to a point where maybe in high school now we should be teaching more about entrepreneurship so that by the time students are out of high school, they already know and understand better what you are talking about when you are talking about entrepreneurship, what you are talking about when you're talking about small businesses. But hold that thought. Let's go to an outbreak, and when we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to expand more on that question. Asithengise mbukele iKaizer News Talk. Mangabe sibuya siyaqhubeka nalohlelo lethu iKaizer News Talk oyibukelayo. Sibingelele mbukeli sikwamkeleke kusoke nje isigaba sokugcina saloke nje uhlelo lakho iKaizer News Talk oyibukela igama lami nguSimangeli Sibongo sami ngwakachirwa ubukela ke uhlelo lakho iKaizer News Talk. Uhlelo loludlala njalo ke ngolesibili isikhathi sodwa u7:30 kwintandokazi kamabona kude wakho i1 Kaizer TV. Kanti ke usuku namhlanje sinayo ke i-interview naye uDr Maimuna Williams omsungula phinde futhi abawuyena ke umqondiswa yo ke inkampani yazo ukuthi ke Empowering Sustainable Change. Sikhuluma naye ngayo ke nje intsha yaseningizimu Afrika njengoba besebenza kakhulu naye kulona ke izwe laseningizimu Afrika. Dr. Williams, welcome back to the show.
Very much. It's good to be back.
Yes, you did hear the last question that I posed to you before going on an outbreak. The question was about the high schools now, the schools, do you think we've come to a time now where we should be teaching about entrepreneurship in high schools now, so that by the time these kids leave high school, they already know and understand clearly what you're talking about when you're talking about entrepreneurship and how to run small business so that they can be successful? Because we've seen that most of small businesses, they don't prosper in our country. And some of the understanding is the lack of management, of which I think maybe if that is started in high school, then it can then maybe make things better. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, thank you. So the question is whether we should be teaching entrepreneurship in high schools. And I 100% agree with that. Both from the perspective that I've seen our policymakers here in South Africa, and specifically in Gauteng with the Department of Basic Education, focusing in on this as something that is very important, not just for mainstream schools, but including for underserved communities, which I found very commendable. So they know the issue, they know it very well, and there is work underway in order for that to be worked on. The other reason that I agree with this is that I was fortunate enough to be in Davos and to participate in the first ever education house with people like Wendy Kopp. And there was a strong consensus in the room full of people, from international spaces who were very focused on this idea of mindset and entrepreneurial mindset. And just, from my work and my experience, I believe that teaching the entrepreneurial mindset is not just good for entrepreneurs and the small business or business information that you pointed out they often lack. It helps them have that knowledge and know what to do to go forward with better knowledge and to build better businesses. But the entrepreneurial mindset also delivers attributes that allow young people to also be better employees. And so it helps also with the unemployment issue, not just from young people becoming job creators by becoming entrepreneurs, but by having those attributes, those same attributes that employers are saying that young people don't have, because they have the right attitude and the right way to go forward based on the entrepreneurial mindset. And so absolutely critical for it to be integrated into high schools and to be taught in high schools so that young people come out earlier with this entrepreneurial mindset that can help them in many, many ways.
Do you believe that young people at a primary level can become entrepreneurs?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. Look, they can be taught that entrepreneurial mindset from an earlier age. And I've seen, in these spaces like Junior Achievement where I've worked, that increasingly over time, they're bringing these programs down to lower levels. The sweet spot for a Junior Achievement entrepreneurship training program was often always the high school. But now there are elementary programs also teaching about financial literacy and things like that. And so I think that if you're talking to young people about money, you can extend that into talking about entrepreneurship. And that's, maybe even gives us a better chance because you have that kind of baked in from a very, very young age, almost to the point where it's second nature. And so I don't think that that's a bad idea either.
Other sectors, maybe there is an organization where you encourage young people maybe to focus on when they want to embark on this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I think I've just mentioned Davos, and one of the things that was unavoidable as a message coming out of there was just how much technology, digitization, AI, all of those areas are in massive demand. When you think about a comment that I heard from one of the CEOs who said that they're today in a United States context, but probably if you extrapolate that across the world, there's only a few thousand people who are able to build AI large language models and deploy for the world. Imagine, what the case is for the rest of the world and what a young person can do if they put themselves in a position to be one of those people who's on the cutting edge of technology. So I think you can't escape technology and technology-related jobs and demands in those. The second one that I would say would be climate action. Again, feel very, very fortunate to have been in a room with former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, who actually made a call to those of us in the room and beyond to say he needed to recruit people to the cause of working on the climate action issue. And that was a very big one. But I think the third one, I'll put more at a general level. Within all of this talk of technology and, bots and all of these things taking over for our lives, there was a very strong emphasis on the need for human connection and human skills in order to work with the technology that is becoming so pervasive in our lives. So I think back to that idea of the soft skills, that entrepreneurial mindset, I think if young people can develop those alongside maybe, a technical skill, if you go beyond technology, sitting in STEM, because there's so much to build in Africa right now at a time when geopolitics is changing, I think you'll put yourself in a good position.
And how far do you go in as an organization? Maybe before answering that one, let's go to this one first, and then you can then answer to this one. In your introduction, when we were talking about what you do in your organization, I noted that you mentioned that you are focusing on empowering female entrepreneurs. Why is that so?
Yeah, because of the equity issue, right? And that's not just here in Africa, it's still all over the world. And women, we still make up 50%, sometimes a little bit more of the population. And if you don't have half of the population kind of participating, then that could lead to a range of socioeconomic problems. So that's one thing. And then the other is that we also know that when women do participate and, have economics and finance on their side, they're thinking differently than men. They're thinking about how to help others, whether it's those in their family or those in the community. And so the society stands to benefit when women are included more equitably than is currently the case, given, all of our history and cultural issues.
Very true. For our viewers who wants to connect with you, how broad are you as an organization? How far do you go? Do you go to all provinces, or for now maybe you're focusing in the province of Gauteng? How are you doing all the provinces that you have in the country? And you've got contact numbers and social media pages where our viewers can go to so that maybe they can get more information on what you do? Thanks
so much for asking. We're a South African-based organization, so we work all over South Africa. Some of the projects that we have work in the Southern African region. So we don't put any geographical constraint on it. We also have, as a social enterprise, we have a U.S. Partner organization, mainly from a funding perspective, looking at raising funds there. But like our work is here in South Africa and in the region, and we can be reached at sustainable-change.org. That's our website, and you'll be able to find all of our contact information, all of our social media handles and links on our website, sustainable-change.org.
Okay, and the office number, you've got an office number maybe where they can call you, or they can just go to the website?
Yes, I can be reached at 079-79-39408.
Dr. Williams, we have reached the end of the show. Thank you so much for this informative session that you've just had.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Sasinyelele kona-ke amaphethelo alo uhlelo bese kuthulela lona usuku namhlanje. Usimangele wakachirwa ngihamba nalo lonke ke ithimba le-KZN News Talk. Asifinde futhi ke hlangane ngokuzayo.